Welcome to Be the Programmer, where we learn real world skills and build real world projects to help you become the programmer that stands out. Before we get started, the courses in the description below is going to help you take what we've learned here today, practice it by building real world projects. So be sure to check it out and let's get started. Let's talk about React useState. These are 10 things about useState that separate juniors from seniors. Okay, we're going to start with a bit of a quiz. Keep your answers in the comment section. So question 1. If I call setCount with a count plus 1 and I make that call 3 times in a row, what is the final count? Question 2. Why does setUser, in this case, calling it with an object, sometimes not trigger a re-render? Number 3. Why is your setInterval reading the wrong state value? Okay, so put your answers in the comment section and I'll be taking a look. Let's continue. So, number 1, state is a snapshot, not a variable. Let's take an example on the left. In this case, we have the state count. At this point, it's 0. And in this handle click function, we're calling setCount with count, which again is 0. And we're calling it 3 times, incrementing it by 1. So, you see, at the first run, count is 0. So 0 plus 1 is going to be 1. Again, this setCount at that time was still 0. So 0 plus 1 is going to be 1. And again, 0 plus 1 is going to be 1. So the final count is going to be 1 and not 3, which is what we would have expected. So why is this the case? You see, each render captures its own count. The variable doesn't update mid-function. So when React calls your component, count is just the constant. The value React handed it for this render. Calling setCount, in this case, doesn't mutate it. It schedules a future render with a new value. So let's look at what's actually happening. In the first render, count is 0, as you can see. This snapshot is fixed. So when we call setCount 3 times, React queues them. So all of them goes to 0 plus 1, which ends up being 1, because it bashes the updates. So in the second render, the count is just 1. Okay? Lesson 2. Updates are bashed, as we've seen, all of them. So let's take an instance, this handle submit, where we are setting name, setting age, email. We await the save, but again, we still set name and status. So what React does is that it bashes everything. So React groups all setState calls in the same event. In this case, the event is handle submit into one render. So since React 18, this includes promises, timeouts, and async handlers, not just synthetic events. This is called automatic bashing. This helps to reduce wasted renders dramatically. It helps states stay consistent so the UI never have updates. And if you need to opt out from it, you can just wrap it in flush async. Okay, lesson 3. Let's look at this in a bit of practice. So let's read the state from the queue, not a snapshot. So in this case, we see setCount. We're calling count, in this case 0, and we're adding plus 1. So just like we saw before, we are making this call 3 times. So what do you think is going to happen if I click this? So let's click it, plus 3, again calling this 3 times. So we click it. Well, you can see the value is just 1. If we click it again, the value is 2. So we see 2 clicks. We expect the value to be 6, right? But it's just 2. So this is not the way we should do it. The direct value is still. So instead, you should use this method, setCount, where C is the current or the latest count value, and you're taking that latest value and adding 1 to it. So on this first run, setCount is going to be 0. So 0 plus 1 would be 1. In the second run is going to be 1. So 1 plus 1 would be 2, and etc. So let's see that in practice. If we click plus 3, you see it goes to 3, and we expected 3. Click it again, goes to 6. Click it again, goes to 9. Perfect. Lesson 4. Never store derived states. Let's take this one on the left, for example. You see we have a state items, which is just an array, and then we have state count, which is 0 because we have nothing in the array, and then total, again, 0 because nothing is there. So we have these two states that are being derived, well, not in this case, but they could be derived from the items, right? So we now have to keep all three in sync forever. So 3 things to sync is just 3 ways to break it. Instead, we should compute the values during render. What does that look like? So we have the items states, in this case the array. So we can now derive count by saying items.length, and we can also derive a total by saying items.reduce and whatever we want to figure out. So this way, we always derive the value from render, and we only bother about storing items. So you see, zero sync logic needed. So what's the rule of thumb? If you can calculate it from existing states, don't store it. React reruns your component on every render anyway. So derive the value. If it's expensive, wrap it in a useMemo, but never duplicate states. Lesson 5. States should be minimal and non-redundant. What does that look like? You see on the left, we're storing 4 booleans. It's loading, it's error, it's success, and it's idle, which can be different values. So in this case, it could be 4 factorial possibilities, which means there's 6 possible combinations. As you can see, a lot of things can go wrong. So instead, on the right, we can just store 1 status, and they have 4 valid states. So we can say status can be idle, it can be loading, it can be success, or error. So if 2 state values can contradict each other, you have a bug waiting to happen. In this case, with 4 booleans, only 4 of 16 combos are valid. The other 12s are just bugs. With 1 status field, every value is valid by construction. Senior devs collapse impossible states out of existence. Lesson 6. The closure trap. States captured forever. So let's take this for example. We have a state count, in this case, it's 0. And then we have a use effect that holds a timer that uses set interval. So inside the use effect, we have a setter function which sets count and increments it by 1. But there's a problem here. Count is going to be still because when this interval is set up, count is 0 and count is going to stay 0 forever. So as you can see, the interval captures count from the first render forever. So what's actually happening here over time? You see on mount, count is 0, interval captures 0 forever. On the second tick, we see set count, update with 0 plus 1, so e goes to 1. It renders 1 for count. On the second tick, well, on the third tick, well, in this case, the second tick, set count still uses 0, right? Because remember, the count is captured forever, and it still goes to 1. So you see the result, count goes from 0 to 1, then it's stuck at 1 forever. So the fix, again, like we said previously, is to use the latest from the React queue. So we're going to use the latest value of count, and we're going to say the latest value plus 1. Or we can use useRef for values that need to update without triggering re-renders. Okay, lesson 7, objects. Spread, replace, but never mutate. What does this mean? Let's take this on the left. We have a state where we store a user object, which holds a name and an age. React won't see this if you try to update the age by saying user.age equals to 31, right? And then you try to set user with user. This is the same reference. So React is not going to update it, right? So instead, we want to use immutable update. So we're going to say set user, we're going to spread the value of the current user, and we're going to update the value that we want, in this case, age 31. You can also use a functional updater like we've seen before, where u is going to be the current value or the latest value of the user. You can spread u, then you can say age, which is what we want to update, is the current value, again, the current user object value, dot age plus 1. So this is going to be a new reference and is going to cause React to re-render and update the components. So the lesson here is React compares state by reference, not by value. So two objects with identical content but different references will re-render. For nested objects, you must spread at every level you change. Okay? Lesson 8, arrays. Memorize these 5 patterns. So let's say we wanted to add something to the end or to the start. You can just say set, the setter function. You can spread the current items, and you can put in the value you want to put in at the end. Or you can do the same thing, but put in the value at the start and then spread the rest of the values. Let's say we wanted to remove something by ID. Again, we're going to use filter. So you're going to call the setter function, you're going to filter, and you're going to filter by the ID. In this case, if the ID is not equals to the targeted ID. We want to update something by ID, we're going to, again, the setter function, we're going to use the map array since it returns an array. So the map function, and we're going to say the current, right? The current value. And we're going to say if the ID is equals to the targeted ID, then we do the updates. So in this case, we're going to spread the current values and we're going to update the value of done. Else, just return the current value. Again, for inserts, we can use slice and insert at the index and etc. Never use .push, .pop, .splice, .sort, reverse, and etc. They mutate. Use spread plus map, filter, slice instead. Okay, lesson 9. State is local to each component instance. Let's take this graph for example. We have the app component at the top. Then we have 3 counter components which hold 3 different values of count. In this counter component, count is 0. In this one, count is 7. And this one, count is 23. This is their own state of count. Okay, we can see same components, 3 instances, 3 independent states. React tracks states by the position in the tree, not by the component itself. So you move a component to a different position and its state is going to reset. This is why list reorders without proper key props can scramble inputs. Okay, so if you need a shared state, lift it up to the closest common parent. State follows the position, not the component name. So bonus is change the key to force reset on all states inside. Again, remember, states are local. So if the change position is going to cause a change in the state. Okay, number 10, push state down, not up. What does this mean? Let's take a look at the graph on the left. So let's say we have the app component and we hold a state search, and then we have an input component all the way down here that changes the search value. So what happens when we start updating the search value? Every component, because this component change is children to, is going to change. So this is going to cause a re-render in the entire tree with every keystroke. Instead, let's do something let's do something like this on the right. So we're going to move the state from app to the closest component that needs it, which is the search. And then with every keystroke, only this part of the tree would update. Okay, so the renders are going to be scoped to where it matters. The lesson here is lift state up only when two siblings need it. Otherwise, it lives in the component. Just make this smaller. It lives in the component that owns it. The single habit fixes more performance issues than useMemo ever will. Okay, so this is a cheat sheet for useState. As you can see, let's look at how state actually works. State is a snapshot, like we've talked about, not a live variable. Multiple set state calls are batched into one render. Use setter function previous to update a state when the new state depends on the old state. Okay, let's look at some designs. States you shouldn't have. If you can compute it, don't store it. Okay, replace multiple booleans with one status string. Stale closures. Use functional updaters or use ref. Now, let's look at some patterns. How to update state correctly. Update objects with spread. Update arrays with map, filter, spread, but never push or splice. Each instance has its own state by tree position. Push state down, lift only when truly shared. Okay, so again, this is one lesson from the React course. Make sure to check it out in the link below. Okay, thank you for watching, but here's the hard truth. Mastery doesn't come from just watching tutorials. They come from practice. That's why our courses focus on building real-world projects with the skills we learn here. So at the lowest price, you can enroll today and check them out. Thank you.